Well, hi, good morning, and welcome to What's Up with the New World of Darkness. I'm Rich Thomas, CEO and creative director of Onyx Path Publishing, and even though I know probably everybody here knows this already, I'm going to give you just a very brief company ID spiel thing because there's still some confusion. Can you not hear me?
You need to speak up.
What?
You need to speak up.
So
jokes are funny.
Every time I do that, it's funny. So, many years ago, they didn't miss a time. We had White Wolf Publishing, created the World of Darkness. As you know, we did the New World of Darkness, which is what this panel's about. And White Wolf merged with a company called CCP. CCP, Icelandic MMO company. And we were, at White Wolf, very much hoping that we were going to be able to move into the electronic gaming industry as well as do the standard publishing.
Wah, wah.
Obviously, that worked out great. For us, actually, at least for me personally and for our creative friends in the paper RPG business, it actually has worked out nicely because CCP was willing to allow me to start my own company. I left CCP. I am in no way legally or morally connected to them. And that's called Onyx Path Publishing. It's Onyx Path because I'm basically wandering in the darkness. I can barely see where I go. But we're moving forward, and that's the path. So they allow me to license the very projects and properties, the intellectual properties that I've been working on for 20-some years with White Wolf. So that includes Exalted, Classic World of Darkness, and the New World of Darkness, which of course is here. So, very briefly, introduction, and when we get around to asking questions, you'll get to talk to these folks a lot more. But we have the man who's often been my partner in crime here at various conventions and panels, Eddy Webb, and he is currently a consultant with CCP specializing in handling the licenses that he worked on and is still continuing to work on. And they're pretty happy with that setup because they have somebody who actually knows what he's looking at and knows what's good and what's not and can work with them as the license guys, give projects to them for approval. So CCP still approves it. They still own this thing, and they're concerned about it. They don't want us to run amok and do something crazy, like try to do an MMO. And
too soon.
Need a hug. So, Rose Bailey, who is our Vampire the Requiem developer.
Thank you.
Well, bring it up. Colin.
Colin was easily startled.
Who had a long day. Is our mummy developer. Neil Price, who's doing a crap ton of work. And we'll have a lot more to say this afternoon in the What's Up with all the other stuff.
What's up, etc.
Dave Brookshaw?
Yep.
There you go. Mage, the Awakening developer. The ever well-known Black Hat Matt McFarlane, who's done more development than we want to talk about, including Demon and God Machine, and a little something that you'll see in the brochure called Beast of Primordial, but we'll get to that. And Matt McElroy, our good friend and contact with our business partners at Drive-Thru RPG, as well as a writer and developer for Hunter Mortal Remains. So, recently came out, and it's a pretty awesome book. So.
And we have it at the booth.
You should buy it.
So, I'm not even hung over to this morning, which is amazing. I was press ganged by some people to play D&D 5 last night, and we ran out of alcohol at like midnight. Kept playing, so.
I understand those words individually, but together they make no sense to me.
Why would
Out of alcohol? What is this thing?
Yeah, I was surprised too. That they're Canadian. They usually drink a lot. So, with that, that's kind of the intro to all this. So the first thing we wanted to announce, because all of you wonderful people are here, is last year we were talking a lot about the Chronicle books, and we had the God Machine Chronicle, and we had the Strix Chronicle, Blood and Smoke, and we started doing the Chronicle books to basically go back into some of the core lines for the New World of Darkness and put 8 years of experience and playtesting and everything else that we went through to sort of not improve them, but to make them richer and to use that knowledge that we had. So some systems were added and changed and played around with. Some setting stuff was played around with. We really did that with the same intention you would do a second edition, right? I mean, this is some time's passed. We know some more things. We can go in there and change a few things. We can do a little new art, things like that. But when we were discussing this with our Icelandic masters, they felt a little uncomfortable about the idea of putting too much emphasis on the second edition because they were working on this MMO and they thought there might be some confusion. We didn't agree, but it's their property and we respect that. So in the last couple of months, but certainly in the last month particularly, we've continued that discussion. And so now what we're going to be doing is we are actually going to be doing second editions of eventually of all of the New World of Darkness core books. Most easily, but because they're still in development with the Fallen World Chronicle and the Eddy Chronicle, so for Mage and for Forsaken, World of the Forsaken, we're simply going to, they were already being designed to be one in all books like Blood and Smoke. Now we're going to actually make them official. Hey, this is the second edition featuring the Fallen World Chronicle, featuring the Eddy Chronicle. So, Blood and Smoke, we have some tweaking to do to actually make it a full second edition, but not a heck of a lot. The idea was always that it was going to be as inclusive as possible.
It's primarily cosmetic changes we'll be making, and a few errata things, but it's going to remain pretty much the same book that you already have.
Once we do it, and it's available in PDF, anyone who already got PDF of it, we will update you, and you'll just get it for free. And so there won't be another buy-in cost just because hey we managed to make this negotiation work out the way we wanted it. God Machine's a little bit more of a development chore because there's more things that have to be changed and swapped around to make that an actual core second edition New World of Darkness book. So that's going to take a little more work. I'm available.
So am I.
The tag team in trouble again. So I want to get that out for everybody so you understood where we're going with that because we've got a lot of new projects to cover. Philosophically speaking, there's a section in that brochure, and if you don't have one and you need one, and in fact for any reason, come down to the booth at 11:03. That's the booth number, not the time. Come down there, and we both have the brochures, and we would love to talk to anybody after this. Continue any conversations we're having. It's sort of our destination. Keep wandering.
I actually brought some brochures with me.
You have more?
Yeah, I've got like 10 or so.
Where are they?
In my bag.
This is Ian Watson, our community manager.
I thought I had a million of them.
If you guys have ever read our Twitter, website, that's me. Facebook, G+, Tumblr.
That damn Reddit.
We have a Tumblr.
Tumblr's awesome.
Can you pass me one of those, Ian?
Yeah.
Thank
Blair
you.
isn't just for 14
Do you guys-
girls.
I have cheat notes.
Oh, okay.
Basically porn and cats.
Anyone?
And
So-
why shouldn't we be involved in porn and cats, man?
Fair enough.
Whatever
Well,
you do in
actually,
your personal time.
Never speak that, really.
So I should add the porn and cats rules back into Beast.
Yeah.
They were taking notes.
Well, there's
I'll keep
those
that in
bird
mind when
guys
I'm
were
writing
right
this
here.
class.
No, it's not okay.
So You'll notice in here we have our proposed. Here's what we're aiming for next the next year's schedule. It goes through till August and of next year, 2015, I guess it is. You'll notice that we didn't put it in by month this time. We bow to the will of people. Please stop telling us it'll be out of this month, and then it isn't. So we try to do it by season.
Next year's going to be by century.
Not a promise.
Before the heat death of the universe.
We will do what we can, right? There's a little letter in there that I wrote to all the people who are reading the brochure. But basically, it's saying a lot of things that we've been saying for the 2.5 years since Onyx Path started, which is if we are on a project and we need to take more time with it in order to do whatever it is we think it needs, whether it's go back in and put a change that all of a sudden came out of the blue, oh, this is going to make this so much better, or just everything takes longer, that's what we're going to do. And so, we kind of take it a little lighthearted. I know some people get uptight when the projects don't hit when we indicate that we'd like them to, but there's a reason behind it. And the other thing about it, and just to stress this, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubbles, is Onyx Path only recently has grown hugely, tripled in size, to 3 full-time employees.
One of which is his wife.
One of whom is our office manager, who's my wife. So we're nepotism rules as always.
I'm waiting for you to hire your kids soon.
If I could have convinced them to actually help with packing those werewolf deluxes. What? League of Legends, man. So let me kind of go down the list here. Start. You can follow along with the brochure. In other years, you might have remembered we did like little PowerPoint sort of things like that were about yay big on the wall, and sometimes they were at an angle.
Yeah, no one would ever
real
see
wide
those.
here, real narrow there. We can't guarantee what room we get. Like this actually wouldn't have been all that bad.
Yeah.
So we kind of decided this year, you know what, we're going to talk through it. The brochures are out there. You can follow along. I'll try to be as clear as I can. So we go through. First thing we want to talk about coming up is, and these are probably projects you've already heard of, but bear with me. I'll try to keep this as quick as possible so we get right to the Q&A section. In the fall, we're looking to release New World of Darkness, Dark Eras. I talked about this last year. The Dark Eras project was sort of the splat project for the year. It was the new thing. We didn't want to do, for this year, we didn't want to do a new supernatural type. We didn't want to do mummy or demon or Prometheans or whatever. We wanted to kind of take a little bit of time to touch back to all of the different lines that we put out. And so Dark Eras is doing that. It's to go in and say, for the vampires in Requiem, in the historical period of
The Elizabethan era.
this is a bit of
Who killed Christopher Marlowe?
Was it Al Capone?
Well, he is a vampire.
So the thing that we're going to do this, which is experimental, and I don't have a time when we will actually be Kickstartering this, but we will Kickstarter this Kickstart this. I do not have an actual time for that, but hey, not the writer.
That is damn true.
Why, yes, Eddie. Dash. Space. So
Spaces on both sides or neither side.
I don't have time to two spaces. So we're gonna do a Kickstarter with this, and we're gonna try to play around with the Kickstarter a little bit, so that as you're backing it, depending on what you're backing, we'll be able to say, okay, the next stretch goal will be, because so many people have backed Promethean, let's say, we will maybe extend that, the size of that chapter, or add another Dark Era for that, or something else. So we're going to really use the feedback that we're getting during the course of the Kickstarter to determine how we know we're going to have a chapter for each of the things. They're going to start off the same size, and then we're going to kind of play around with it as the thing goes on. So,
If you followed our Book of the Worm Kickstarter, we sort of experimented with this.
that's classic World of Darkness. They don't know anything about that.
We had voting on things like whether we were going to do evil changing breeds or Fomori first teams, things like that, and we did a number of those for our stretch goals. This will be similar, but we're looking to actually be more ambitious this time.
I still think Kickstarter is rife for experimentation. It's still pretty much a frontier, so we're going to try a few extra things. I told Robin Laws, who won the Diana Jones Award, that that I was stealing a bunch of his ideas from folk because they're award-winning.
Yeah.
So. Next up, we're talking about Secrets of the Covenants. Rose, if you want to...
So,
For
if you
Requiem.
followed Requiem for the last couple of years, in 2007 to 2009, we did the clan books, which were documents from inside the World of Darkness that really delved into what it's like to be a member of each of the clans. Well, we're going to do the same thing with the Covenants. Secrets of the Covenants is an all-in-one volume that gives you an inside look at every one of the core 5 covenants and maybe a few hints about other splinter covenants. It's primarily a book of setting material in artifact style like the clan books. There will also be a mechanical appendix which will include stuff like new merits, new blood sorcery. I've just been talking to one of the writers about revisiting Ordo Dracul blood alchemy.
New conditions?
No new conditions, probably.
Maybe.
But we'll see what alchemy requires.
Yeah, that's true.
Optimized.
And it is going
Turned
to be
to gold.
for the second edition?
Yes, it is going to be for Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition. I am so glad to be saying those words.
I will be referring to Rose multiple times through this to speak up for those poor developers who couldn't be with us today. Stu Wilson with Werewolf, the Forsaken Idigan, who's in Scotland and can't get here because it's Scotland. He's far away. So
And David Hill, who is in
I
Japan.
will. I'll keep trying to talk up. And also my throat's closing up as I'm talking. So next up we have the Idigam Chronicle, which would now be called...
Werewolf the Forsaken 2nd Edition!
And it's an accompanying fiction. I don't know that we need to explain too much about that, except that it's going to be the 2nd edition, and it's going to feature a specific chronicle within it that if you're into it, you want it to be the default setting chronicle for that thing, but you, of course, because it's the New World of Darkness, you pick and choose how much of that you want to use for yourself. It's, it's there to help, not to get in the way of playing. Demon Translation Guide. Hey, Demon Translation Guide.
Oh god, Demon Translation Guide.
How's that going?
I am writing the Demon Translation Guide, translating back and forth from Fallen to Descent, which is a huge job if you look at, for example, the number of powers in Fallen. And, oh god, the number of powers in Descent, Matt.
Only 120.
Whose fault is that again?
Get to work.
So that has ended up kind of delayed as I've been working on other demon projects. But it'll be coming up in the fall or winter. One cool feature, I think, just to give you an idea of how we're translating things back and forth, is that in Classic Demon you had Torment, which was a measure of basically how much the war in heaven and your imprisonment in hell had fucked you up. And in the New World of Darkness, you have Cover, which is a measure of how much reality has got your back while you're pretending to belong and not be a fallen angel. The systems in the translation guide will actually allow you to use both at once. We're not doing Torment as a morality stat equivalent. We're using a different set of rules, so you'll actually be able to mix and match things. Similarly, the powers are going to be 2 separate categories of powers that can be used alongside each other.
Do you want to roll right into the Demon Storyteller Guide?
Yes. Okay, so Right now I am recruiting writers for the Demon Storyteller's Guide. That's going to be a pretty big book covering a number of topics. We're going to get into ciphers, which are Matt's baby, and Matt will be writing that section. So more about how to design ciphers for your players, more about the mechanical effects of ciphers. We'll also be getting into more tools for building angels. One thing in the core book, we had a lot of general purpose noumena, which worked pretty well for building antagonists, but we're going to get into more god-machine flavored specific noumena that sort of parallel the embeds and exploits that are available to demons. And we're going to have a chapter of alternate settings for the game, including a fantasy setting, or a semi-historical setting, really, biblical times, and a science fiction futuristic setting.
You up to telling anything about Curse of the Blue Nile anthology?
Sure.
For Mummy?
They're not going to hear me. Should I?
You whispered to me,
That's what I'm saying.
All right, Colin. What's it about?
Let me write this down. So, some of you guys may have seen, the Strix anthology that we have in the booth, which is for sale. And not the booth,
Yes, it's for sale.
There were 2 copies left.
It's kind of for sale.
Those 2 copies are for sale.
We're actually down to our last 2 copies of Blood and Smoke as well. So
Buy quickly.
yeah, so if you want it here and if you want it before the title changes.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know about the replay.
So, Mummies is on the way, but it's not going to have the same format. Instead of a bunch of shorts, it's 5 basically novellas. It's called Curse of the Blue Nile, and there's basically, it's sort of rough, but it's sort of one for each of the main factions in Mummy, and those factions are the guilds. And so each novella has a protagonist who is sort of from that guild and represents their ideas. The other thing is the name, Curse of the Blue Nile. The running thread in all of these stories is some kind of relic or weird thing that somebody's looking for called Blue Nile. It changes. It's not the same thing from each story. That's the concept.
That's the fall, and we're going to do what we can to make sure that somewhere in that season these books arrive, or at least look like they're going to arrive. Maybe the PDFs will arrive. In the winter, we're looking at Mage the Awakening 2. The Fallen World. Let's wait for the... Well, actually, you got the thing.
Yeah, why don't you step
Show
up here,
other people
Dave?
what you have.
I have
Next.
I have in my hand a partially complete first draft, which on my
Not
long
a lot of red in there.
not a lot of red in here yet.
Not to my section yet.
Let's skip forward to one of Neil's. One of Neil's bits have more red in them. But
To be removed.
so Do this again. yes, it's about 8/10 complete as a first draft. It is a first draft. It has draft stamped on every page of it. So anything you read in here is subject to change because I haven't read half of what's in here yet. But if you catch me at the booth, or if you want to come up and have a flick through it after this, then do, and it is here for you to have a look at.
Also, Dave was only told that he's doing
I was
the second
only-
edition
Yeah.
yesterday. So.
Which is why the head is wrong.
Well, do we have a Sharpie? We just got.
One thing that you may want to keep up with for the second editions is that, as with Blood and Smoke, we're doing ongoing blogs for Werewolf, Mage, and soon-to-be Changeling. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Just skip right over Promethean. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
Everybody always does.
I didn't know if you were doing a blog for Promethean.
I might.
Didn't want to commit you.
Yeah, you haven't committed to it, but okay. Well, and a blog for Promethean. So we're going to be doing those ongoing on the. You can find those on the Onyx Path front page. We really have been finding that that talking to players early on has helped improve the quality of the books. So we're going to keep doing that.
Yeah, it's 1,000 times. It's amazing. So, Rose, you want to roll right into 1,000 Years of Night? Speaking
All
of
right. 1,000 Years of Night is the Elder Source book for Vampire the Requiem 2nd Edition. One of the things about Elders is that in the past there's been a tendency to look at them as static, as bored, as outmoded. And really, none of that's the case in Requiem. If you look at Blood and Smoke / 2nd Edition already, you'll see that Elders are playing the long game. They are canny operators who have survived, hundreds of other vampires sired alongside them being destroyed. So if you've survived as an Elder in the Modern Knights, you're a badass. And this will be a book that lets you play out those kinds of generational chronicles, that helps you build histories that interlink a coterie of elders together, and that gets into what we called the Elder as Conspiracy game in the Danse Macabre a few years ago.
The Promethean 2 Firestorm Chronicle Fiction Anthology.
Okay. So I was just told that Firestorm Chronicle was actually the 2nd edition of Promethean yesterday as well, but that's kind of how I've been looking at it all along, so whatevs. The fiction anthology is interesting because unlike Vampire and unlike Werewolf and unlike Mage, A, we only ever got 4 books for Promethean, and B, the fiction that's in them doesn't really work to pull out and put in an anthology because it's the opening piece and then all of the full pagers. So out of context, it don't work so much. So I just said, okay, never mind. We're gonna get 10 new stories, and I read through the first drafts and redlined them a couple of weeks before Gen Con, and redlining them took all of like an hour because they all came in really awesome and really clean.
Who are some of the writers?
Who are some of the? Oh God, no, I don't want to fuck this up. So you did one, right? Did you do one for the anthology?
I did not.
Damn. I have so many projects that are all kind of concurrent, and he's on most of them. So I'm like, it was a shot in the dark. No. Oh, that's right. Eddy did one.
Now you're cheating.
Eddy did one. I'm actually doing 3 because I had a couple of authors drop off the project late, but it actually was kind of a serendipitous thing because the story that I wrote initially was too long. And I'm like, I don't want to trim 2,000 words out of the story, and then I got handed 10,000 extra words. I'm like, sweet, I'll just break it into 3 parts. So actually, a bunch of the writers on the book are people who submitted to our all call a couple of months ago. And so, again, I gotta remember who's on this particular book. Megan Fitzgerald, is she in the room? Hi. So she did one. A fellow named Jose Garcia did one. God, and I'm gonna stop trying to think of people.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was really happy with the fiction. It came out really nice and really clean, and it basically breaks up into here are some stories that are kind of Prometheans in the early stages of their pilgrimage, kind of creation stories. The middle stories are kind of stories of the pilgrimage and of trying to find the new dawn, and then the end stories are kind of the cleansing, burning rains of the firestorms and of reaching an end point in the pilgrimage. Whether it's the end point that you want or not is kind of a different question.
Excellent. Sure. You want to just?
I was going to say, shall I just roll into?
I was going to just stand there for a second. We'll do, and then finally in winter of 2014 to 15, the Half Damned for Requiem 2nd edition.
Yes. Half Damned is going to be an interesting book. One of the things that we came to when we were doing Blood and Smoke was that there are all of these interesting potential characters in Requiem who aren't vampires, who are nonetheless interesting to have in a group of vampires. In Blood and Smoke itself, we covered ghouls. They got their own appendix and their own splat page and all of that, and their unique merits. Half Damned is going to build on that further. It's going to cover ghouls again. We've got more material for them. It's going to cover revenants, who are vampires who are sort of accidentally created. Instead of being embraced deliberately, they've been infected with the curse and died and come back. And they've got a lot of disadvantages, but they also have a unique relationship to the Requiem, which we'll be exploring. And finally, we're going to be doing Dampier, which I think should be exciting to a lot of folks. And I don't want to talk too much about that yet because we're still working out the mechanical underpinnings. If you saw Wicked Dead a few years ago, we're going to incorporate some elements of that with Dampier having a sort of a tragic relationship with vampires in many cases. But since they're player characters this time, they're not going to be Magic Doom bunnies, as they were in the previous edition. You will get to see the beginnings of the Dampier story in Secrets of the Covenants as well.
So, and then in the spring, it's a little. We have two projects listed. Part of that is because one of those projects is pretty big, and the other. Dave, now that you know you're doing the second edition, does that change some of your thinking for Shards of Power for Mage the Awakening second edition?
Depends. Can I have more word count for the core book?
In that case, no.
You see that when you get to the booth, you see that the size of the core books. Like, yay now. Make them inclusive.
So, Shards of Power is going to be the main focus for Awakening Second Edition is we're going quite hardline on mages as occult investigators, and the concept that's always been there from Awakening's first edition of mysteries, in that mages sense something. Mages can sense any supernatural event, whether they're created by mages or not, and they're usually not. And it's poking into these and refusing to let go of them that drives the story of most Mage Chronicles. The first supplement for Awakening Second Edition is going to be about all of the mysteries that are of supernal origin. So a chapter about magical tools and the items that you use in ritual magic. A chapter about imbued magical items that mages make, artifacts, which are items from the supernal world that have fallen down into reality, and a chapter about supernal verges, which are areas like, if you've ever read the novel The House of Leaves, they're areas that have been overwritten by the supernal and have started to go really strange. So yeah.
Very New World of Darkness appropriate.
Yeah.
A mysterious place.
Yeah, exactly. So that is going to be our first book and the only supplement for Awakening that's now on the release schedule.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Promethean second edition, featuring the Firestorm Chronicle.
So, I love Promethean. It's probably my favorite New World of Darkness line until Demon came along and sort of gave it a run for its money. And but one of the Promethean had a couple of issues. One of which was you can't really run a game of Promethean where the characters don't travel all the time, because eventually everything falls apart literally. So one of our design approaches for Promethean Second Edition was, I want to make this more. I want to open our options a little bit. I want to make the game more accessible. I want to bring in some of the stuff that we put in the supplements that I really liked. So the book's going to include 7 lineages, not 5. We're adding the Unfleshed in as a real lineage. We're adding the Extempore in as a real lineage. and we're putting all of the refinements in, and then we added one as well. So the refinement of phosphorus is getting added in as well. So yes, so it's all about light and shadows and death, I think.
Cell phones.
And cell phones should be burned in fire and light. So anyway, a large focus on the pilgrimage and on kind of that alchemy that lets you play a character who's trying to understand people. I haven't read the first drafts yet because they're actually not due until next week. So I know that some people who are really awesome, like that gentleman right back there, Eric, has turned in his first draft a week early, and I got to skim through it. I'm like, oh, look, transmutations have Alembics now, and you just spend Pyros, and awesome things happen, and I have to put this away because I got to go to Gen Con. So, but kind of in keeping with some of the same design philosophy that we used for Demon and some of the other kind of more recent projects, the powers are a little bit more effective, if a little bit more focused, and don't rely on dice so much as spend the points and deal with the consequences. One of the things, too, is that I remember that you can, as it is right now in Promethean, if you spend Pyros for any reason, your disfigurements flare, which can be inconvenient. With the transmutations the way they are now, you can accept a condition to have your disfigurements not flare, which can be more or less of a problem depending on where you are. So.
Excellent.
What about clones, Matt?
What about clones?
We don't have to say everything. We've got a little time. Then just save that for the Q&A. Okay, and then in the summer, briefly, since Mr. David Hill is
In
also
Japan.
really, really far away in Japan, we have a couple of things that he's working on. The Hurt Locker for New World of Darkness 2nd Edition.
Yes, Hurt Locker is going to be a spiritual successor to the Armory series. It will. What is?
It's a train. Train station.
Oh,
Big shock.
okay, great. Great, we got trains.
We
Okay.
just thought it was like a motif, like, it's not a real train station, it's just like a design thing.
We invoke the name of David Hill, and
Intersected trains.
this is what happens.
So
There are so many places to go.
I know.
And we're not going to. Hurt Locker, go.
Hurt Locker is going to delve into combat and violence in the New World of Darkness 2nd Edition rule set. I have not seen a lot of the mechanics yet because David is only just starting, but we will be putting this into open development on the blog relatively early because combat's a fairly intricate system and we want to get a lot of feedback from a very early point in the design process. So I can't give you an exact date on that, but it's going to be soon.
And also, not really a secret, since you can see that there's going to be a fiction anthology for it, but Changing the Lost 2nd Edition will be coming up later in the year, but its fiction anthology will be in the summer. So, similar sort of thing. And then finally, certainly not least, the new game for 2015, Beast the Primordial, which will be spearheaded like hunting the beast
No, you're not fighting the beast.
with the spear.
See, it's exactly that kind of hero-centric
Perhaps you should tell us a little
I
bit about
will,
it.
absolutely. Okay,
Yeah,
so
places we have missed.
now, so I just contracted Beast not that long ago. We've done a lot of brainstorming, but of course nothing's really written on it yet. So please understand that there will be much more later. In Beast the Primordial, you're playing a beast. You're playing basically an embodiment of one of the primal nightmares of humanity, one of which is trains, evidently.
That's actually the sound of the beast approaching.
That's right.
The Train Chronicle.
So,
Fear the beast.
Ghost train.
every beast has a hunger. You fulfill your hungers. The integrity analog in Beast is called satiety, and it goes up. One of the interesting things that we're doing in Beast, though, is that your satiety rating will fluctuate pretty wildly within a session. So don't bother bubbling in the dots. Just move the little counter. At high satiety, certain things happen. At low satiety, certain things happen. Beasts are effective in different ways depending on basically how hungry they are. If you're in the middle, that's kind of where you're vulnerable, because you're not hungry enough to be focused, but you're not full enough to be dangerous. But if you don't fulfill your hunger, then your soul, which is basically a primordial nightmare monster, goes romping through the dreamscape and screwing with people's lives and nightmares. And that will eventually cause heroes to arise, and they will eventually come and find your ass. They are not the protagonists. They think they are. The heroes think it's all about them. We know these guys, right? But it's not about them. It's about the beasts. Yes, dear?
One of the things that has actually been discussed while I'm actually working on the hero section for this book. One of the things
I plant ringers in the end.
Gaston from Beauty and the Beast would be a great example of a hero.
Oh yes, perfect, exactly. I mean, I worry about mentioning Beauty and the Beast too much because that's not one of our
fairy tale.
Exactly, it's not really a fantasy setting. It's not one of our primary. However, no, Gaston is really a good example of a hero, not because he's actually a hero, but because he walks into the bar and sings a big song and everybody loves him, and then he really thinks that it's his place to go out and fix the world by killing this beast. Well, fuck you.
He's in the world for a reason.
Exactly. And the beast has been here longer than you, Mr. Gaston, and sorry that you don't like it that I'm living in my big castle and collecting things that technically belong to other people, but
Matt,
He wasn't noble.
do you want to talk about the subversive element?
I kind of just did.
Well, the other subversive
I'll
element.
tell you what,
subvert
we
the world
only
of
have so much
darkness.
time,
Yeah,
so
why
why
don't we go
don't we go into questions and you guys ask anything you want to ask about anything else to do?
And also to the people up here at front, repeat the question when you get it, so that way we pick it up on the microphone and the people in the back can hear it.
Oh, big drink.
If we
I think it's circling us.
Are you guys actually opening up a retail wing for retail stores? Are you offering any sort of anything beyond drive-through RPG at this point?
So obviously with our
Repeat the question.
with what are we going to be doing with retailers?
Yeah, bricks and mortars.
We have the two programs we currently have in place. Of course, the retail tiers at our Kickstarters, and we also have a beta program with drive-through to provide retailers with discounted print-on-demand books. And you can come sign up for that, and as a retailer, and is a how do you want to describe it?
Like traveling roses to.
If we ever do that.
Yeah, so it's like a direct order sort of thing, and of course, it's still not going back into the retailer distribution channels wholeheartedly, but we do want to try to get retailers some opportunity to, get our books and get them out to the audience through their stores and enjoy having that community happening there. Okay, next questions. I saw you first.
Little Bird told me that there's going to be some encouraging of crossovers in Beast. Could we hear anything about that, or is it still too early?
Oh no, we can talk about that. All right, so the question was crossover in Beast. I just did
He's
that.
about to.
And, would have been able to hear
Settle
me if you
down.
interrupted.
God.
You got this, Ian, or do you want?
Ian, you're so rude.
No,
It's interrupting.
throw a chair at it.
Anyway, the question was crossovers in Beasts. How work? Beasts think of themselves as family. In fact, the kind of explat, if you will, is just simply called families because I like words that mean what they actually mean. But they think of other supernatural beings as family too. And they don't. I mean, obviously, they can rock up to a vampire, perhaps, and think of them as family. That does not prevent the vampire from stabbing them in the back later, but that's drama. That's fun. Beasts actually have a whole kind of subcategory of powers called kinship that lets them kind of play with that and buff other supernaturals' powers a little bit, if you will, or develop powers for themselves based on. I think the example that I used in the outline was, if I know Saul the Nosferatu, I can make a power based on vampire, I can make a power based on Nosferatu, or I can just make a power based on Saul. I have no idea how that's actually going to come together, because like I said, we're still in the first draft phase, so it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not sure how my hunters feel about this.
You know, hunters can feel whatever way they fucking want about this.
They can hang
it's
with
not
heroes.
their story. We've been through this. So I love crossover. I'm finally making a game where crossover is, yes, do it. Put the beasts in your Changeling game. I want you to do that. So.
Are the new games intended to be ongoing lines, or is it more like the original Promethean, where it was one book, 5 expansions, and then done?
God, I hope I get 5 expansions.
So they're not, you know, when we did Promethean, it was we were experimenting with the limited series. So we said, here's how many we're doing. That's it. Boom. We're not really going down that road for a lot of these, mostly because of the limited amount of books that we can get out. Basically, they're all limited series, right? I mean, we're going to do them. We may stop at a certain point, but the regular just we're just going to keep putting out. That was part of that kind of production grind that we got stuck into. So as good ideas come for these, and we see that there's interest for them, especially we get a lot more feedback now. We get direct feedback during the open dev process and on the forums and such. We can say, you know what, let's do this one too, because everybody's super excited, the developer's excited, or there's a writer who just wants to do this thing and the fans are excited too. So we might go back to the limited series idea again, but it's not really needed right now.
And ask crazy questions on the forums, because there are definitely things in supplements, including the presence of Dampier in Half Damned, that are inspired directly by things that people have kept asking about over the years.
I have a follow-up for Beast. Okay. When I was reading the section for it, giving the teaser, my first immediate thought was, are we playing dragons? But as we talked about it more, like, are we seeing Wendigo? Is it too early to ask? Like, I would say Wendigo.
Okay.
Don't spoil everything.
Rich tells me I can't spoil everything. Okay, so that's okay. I'm not.
You can say whatever you want. I don't want your beast to rise against me.
Right, yeah. My beast has had no coffee. My beast is a kitten at the moment. So I mentioned earlier that beasts are kind of embodiment of primal fears of mankind, of humanity. So if you want to make a dragon, since you brought that up, your character is not literally going to be able to turn into a dragon in the middle of Times Square, because that's kind of counter to what we're doing in the New World of Darkness generally. Now, with that said, if your beast soul, if you will, wants to be a dragon, well, what's scary about the dragon that you want to bring in? Is it the fact that it's a nightmare from the sky that can swoop down and get you? Okay, well, that's this family. Is it the dragon that will just reach out and snap and eat you and you're gone and completely destroyed? That's that family. As far as the Wendigo goes, I could put that into a family in a hunger right now, and so it's pretty simple.
There'll be a lot of flexibility.
Yes. So yes, you may play a Wendigo.
Question about Mage. Are we going to see any updating of the boss fit setting?
Can you please repeat the question?
It was a question about the Boston setting in Mage. If you've read Requiem Second Edition, you know that it has various example settings towards the back of it, and one of them is not New Orleans, because that was the signature setting when Requiem first came out, and it had a whole book about it. We were intending to update New Orleans.
So what happened with New Orleans, really briefly, is that we'd done some stuff in the clan books that updated the setting because we felt it would be kind of weird to not acknowledge that a hurricane hit it. We felt at the time that it was kind of irresponsible if we erased that. So because of that, New Orleans moved forward a little bit. We were going to put it in Blood and Smoke, but because of a writer drop, a writer who actually lived in New Orleans for a while, we didn't really finish it, and I cut it for space. Because as Rich pointed out, our books have been getting larger and larger, and we need to put some
we're
control
going to be
on that.
liable for back injuries pretty soon.
So, however,
going back to Mage, Boston
Mage.
has not had a hurricane hit it. The Boston book is still there. You can get the Boston book and drive through it, and I don't want to contradict the Boston book and like remove a supplement from Gameline for the sake of a 3,000 word update. That said, the Deviant is one of the signature characters. He's the Thyrsis signature character. Konzu, who's from the Boston supplement, has a story about him in the Awakening fiction anthology. So there are, the Boston setting, the Boston characters are still in Awakening, but it's not one of the cities that's actually going to be in the second edition's core book.
And there are going to be a number of cities in the second edition core book.
Much like
Blood and Smoke, Werewolf's going to be doing the same thing. And we'll talk about other lines as we go forward.
All the way in the back.
Can you name any of those settings that may be in for Mage second edition or for Promethean?
LA is in Mage. The hook for LA. The cities in Mage all have a individual mystery. That they've all got something weird going on about them, like Boston's Secret Concord. The mystery in LA is that famous people are starting to become possessed by their own astral reflections.
You asked about Promethean, so I'll give you one there. I know we're doing Prague in Promethean, and it was I bring this up because one of the writers, Mark Stone, was in Prague. He might still be there, I'm not sure. And so I think you're writing the right, Neil? So it was fun watching the emails bounce back and forth on our list from Neil and Mark, because Mark is writing like, there are really three Pragues. There's the ancient, the old city with all this beautiful architecture, and then there's like Prague under the communists where everything is blocky and brutalist and ugly, and now there's kind of this new emerging, like, people are being proud of their city and there's new businesses coming up. And I'm like, we picked a good one for Promethean, didn't we? Awesome. Also, there's this golem that people like to talk about, so yeah.
Like you do. We don't have a lot of time left, and I'll just say before we end everything that please come down to the booth and continue these conversations. We would love to have you there and answer questions for everybody who can take the time. We'd love to see you. And one more. Mr. Hat.
You said that you're releasing the 2.0 as an update to Blood and Smoke, which is awesome. The question is, will people with Blood that already have the book copy of Blood and Smoke be able to play 2.0, or would you recommend buying the new book?
It will be very close to identical. The changes we're making to go from Blood and Smoke to 2.0, the question was changes between Blood and Smoke and Requiem 2nd Edition. The changes will be very tiny. It's largely going to be the same book. It's going to be all the same art. It's going to be the same layout. So really, you've already got Requiem 2nd Edition if you've bought Blood and Smoke. This is going to be the 2nd edition again, not the 3rd edition.
Okay. Eddy?
I have 2 XL T-shirts for my booth, so who wants an XL shirt?
All right. So thank you, everyone. I very much appreciate it. We cannot do this without you.